Welcome to Cosmic Chosen. Pause. Breathe. Let this sink into your spirit like divine oil over an old wound. The suffering is over. The trial has expired. The wilderness season has been closed. You, chosen one, have crossed the final checkpoint in silence, with a grace the world mistook for weakness. But heaven saw. Heaven documented every quiet cry, every invisible sacrifice, every act of kindness you gave even when you were starving for love yourself. Watch who you show kindness to. They may have a billion-dollar disguise on. Yes, you. That smile you gave when you were breaking. That hand you offered when you had nothing to spare. That grace you extended when bitterness could have been your shield. Unseen? No. Forgotten? Never. You passed a divine test wrapped in street clothes. That stranger in the hoodie? That quiet person with gentle eyes and no entourage? They weren't just passing through. They were heaven's agent, a kingdom investor cloaked in ordinariness. And you? You didn't try to perform. You didn't cloud chase. You didn't fake enlightenment. You were real, unpolished, pure, full of heart, even when yours was in pieces. And because of that, you've been found. You've been selected. Your name is being whispered in rooms where money meets destiny. The vault you didn't know you were depositing into, it's open. Heavenly interest has matured. This is no longer about survival. This is about arrival. You are walking into a life that your former suffering tried to convince you wasn't possible. 1. Your generosity wasn't arbitrary. Power saw it as a test of the heavens. Holding a door open, giving directions, sharing a meal, or giving someone life on a bad day, what you may have believed was a straightforward, spontaneous act of kindness, was really a divine arrangement, not just for them but also for you. The moment wasn't arbitrary. It wasn't insignificant, yet it wasn't disregarded either. Behind the scenes, that same moment was being watched, not only by the person you helped, but also by the one who really had the capacity to transform your life without seeking praise for doing so. You were unaware that the individual in front of you was a low-key, ordinary-looking person with billionaire energy. You weren't searching for riches, therefore you didn't notice it. The secret is that you weren't acting. You had no intention of impressing. You weren't looking for a chance. You were only being honest. And it is really uncommon. Another person attempting to network, pleading, or admiring that millionaire wasn't necessary. That script is well known to them. However, you showed them something they hadn't seen in years. A good-hearted person without any ulterior motives. You were marked by that moment. Both they and the universe saw that. While others are using tactics and methods to achieve success, you just passed a spiritual exam that set you up for a degree of reward that was impossible to anticipate or prepare. Being excessively giving, helpful, or nice is exactly what others made fun of you for, but it also opened a hidden entrance. And you were completely unaware of it. Although the person you assisted may have seemed to be in need of your assistance, what they really needed was a reminder that honesty, purity, and the fact that some people help just because it's the right thing to do are still relevant. They are now prepared to ensure that you never have to doubt your value again. 2. You saved a person who had given up on humanity, not a billionaire. You didn't just provide a hand to wealthy people. Someone who had nothing left within was helped by you. They seem to have everything that people desire: access, fortune, and position. On the inside, however, they were exhausted, hollow, and almost humanity gone. They were gradually withdrawing from people, from trust, and from the notion that genuine love or sincerity still existed. But they were keeping this from everyone. Then, when no one expected you to be, you showed up, raw, sincere, and kind, without being ostentatious or attempting to get anything. They were struck harder than you could have ever imagined by that moment. They didn't need someone else to pretend to be happy. They didn't need someone to worship their money or another yes guy to remind them that not everyone is empty. They needed just one genuine soul. Not only did your generosity benefit them, it stopped a downhill trend. You turned into that inexplicable moment they couldn't get rid of. Something clicked when you talked to them and treated them like a person rather than a walking financial account. They were perched on the precipice. Perhaps not literally, but intellectually and spiritually. They were prepared to permanently cut people off. All set to abandon generosity, all set to vanish. You then provided them an excuse not to. Your actions weren't only kind. It was vital. Unaware that you were touching a weary spirit, you reminded it of what it was like to be seen without condemnation, needed without being exploited. And after processing everything, they've come to the conclusion that you did more than just give assistance. You gave them hope, an unannounced, quiet rescue effort without a spotlight, a cape, or any other requirements. The effect of that type never goes away. It persists. In the finest manner, it haunts. And they're moved now, not just thankful. And those in positions of authority take action when they really feel something. You salvage their faith in kindness, not just their day. Furthermore, such a deed is not only remembered, but also appreciated. 3. You made a never small motion that changed a timeline. More than just helping someone, that one act of kindness you performed so spontaneously, without hesitation or expectation of reward, accomplished more. It brought about a change, a true change. You did more than simply make someone's day. You set off a whole other timeline. Energy, not effort, is what drives the cosmos. Additionally, even the tiniest action may have unexpected consequences when your energy is pure, genuine, and in harmony with something greater. Not right away, anyhow. You were not only being kind. Few individuals are able to access the frequency at which you were working, one in which one does not have to earn affection, when assistance is provided without conditions, when giving is not done to get anything, but rather because it is who you are. And that energy has a lot of power. That is the kind of energy that alters results. On the surface, it doesn't seem loud or spectacular, but below it, reality is distorted. In the moment, what you accomplished could have appeared unmemorable. You may have even left without giving it more consideration. But that moment marked you and them on a soul level. You unknowingly interrupted what may have been a very bleak course for the other individual. The echo of that generosity will soon be magnified and returned to you. Karma is often discussed as if it exclusively refers to justice or retribution. However, they overlook the fact that it also benefits people who lead moral lives. Not only are you doing good when you act with a pure heart, but you are also starting a spiritual domino effect. And you're finally at the end of that chain. They weren't only treated with courtesy, that billionaire. The frigid pattern they were trapped in was literally broken by a sign they got. They changed in some way. Additionally, things in your life are going to change. You attempted to generate a result, but it isn't paying off. It's coming because, unbeknownst to you, you brought about a change. It is now necessary for the cosmos to react. For you demonstrated to the elite that purity is not limited by cost. The privileged are used to paying for everything: praise, devotion, favors, and even affection. In their universe, everything is a quiet transaction. The majority of those around them are hiding behind masks, calculating every action, every word, and every interaction in the hopes of receiving something in return. Therefore, it destroyed their system when someone like you showed up with unwavering compassion and no expectations. It interfered with their show. What money couldn't purchase, you did. You provided something genuine at no cost. And that's unheard of in their world. They weren't flattery. You didn't request a favor or a picture. The social ladder game was not played by you. You just treated them like people, not just a pocketbook. They don't experience that. Since they're so used to being seen as walking opportunities, your genuineness came as a huge shock. And not simply a pleasant one, either, since it made them confront the fact that purity still existed, something they didn't want to acknowledge. But it's quite uncommon. You were unaware that there was something old and pure in your spirit. You didn't need to declare your value. They sensed it. Your soul had weight, even though you weren't attempting to be remarkable. And it had more impact on those who had seen, purchased, and done it all than any premium brand or sales pitch. You reminded them that even when no one is looking, some individuals still behave honorably. Individuals that don't plan, don't perform, or just turn up as they are. They can't get it out of their heads. Not because you made an effort to make an impact, but rather because you failed to do so. And you did for just that reason. Not out of sympathy or curiosity, but out of true interest. The elite are now silently observing you. Because they cannot purchase what you carry, but they can purchase everything else. You are thus the most valuable individual present. 5. Before you even spoke, your energy was palpable. Something about you disturbed the atmosphere surrounding them before you ever opened your words. There was a certain calm force about your presence. It's the sort that commands attention without trying, not the kind that demands it. It was more than simply your gait, your demeanor, or even your attire. It was more profound. Your frequency was the one. The way your body didn't enter the room until your energy did. Additionally, your genuineness pierced through like a sharp edge in a society when most individuals are seeking approval. Even though they were unable to identify it, they sensed it. When you stepped into their territory, the billionaire who was used to reading people and was taught to recognize trickery at a glance, hesitated. Not because of how you looked, but because there was no hunger, despair, or sense of entitlement in your energy. Wholeness was something they hadn't experienced in years. You had nothing to sell. You didn't seek out an angle. You were only there, and they felt secure in that place. They sensed reality. Words couldn't express the things your energy said. It informed them that while they had seen darkness, they should not have been resentful. It informed them that even if you've been harmed, you can still be in love. You're not here to impress, it told them. Your purpose is to live in harmony. It is uncommon to have that degree of spiritual clarity, and it was pleasant to meet someone like you after navigating a world full of masks and plays. It was eerie. They couldn't get rid of it. They may have forgotten your name a few days later, but the vibration persisted. That push from inside, that emotional imprint, that uncanny feeling that they had just met someone who wasn't part of this system. Someone who is unfazed by riches, prestige, or celebrity. A person whose soul speaks for them without the necessity for loud words. You were engraved, not only felt. 6. A high-level soul rethought their life contract because of you. Your actions were much more than just being nice. Unbeknownst to you, you entered someone's life just as they were about to leave everything. Not only the company, the titles, or the attention, but also from the mission they once pledged to serve. Done giving, done believing, done caring, that millionaire, that high-level soul, had already made the mental decision, I'm done. Although they seemed strong on paper, they were silently and totally collapsing spiritually. That fall was broken by your presence. And it had nothing to do with a speech or a big show. That was the tiny human moment you brought about. One that didn't demand praise. You failed to provide them with a remedy. You gave them authenticity. Just soul-level sincerity. No disguise, no act, no ulterior agenda. And something broke open when they sensed it. Spiritually, not emotionally. After meeting you, they didn't simply feel noticed. But people like them don't make impulsive choices easily. They were summoned out of their haze. They had devised an escape strategy that was cloaked in subdued hopelessness and passed off as progress. However, your presence caused them to doubt everything. You lit a new will, but you didn't give them a new map. Why am I here? What if there's more? What if this isn't the end, just a redirection? And everything altered as a result. They realized that there is still brightness in the world after spending that time with you. That what they believed to be the end of the mission may still be happening. They didn't need an additional counsel or helper. They need a spiritual shock. And you did it just by being yourself. They are now reconsidering everything. They are rereading the contract that they were about to destroy, with fresh eyes this time. All because they were reminded of a more profound reality by your energy. Work remains to be done. They have not yet finished, yet something precious remains. Without even attempting it, you rekindled the objective. 7. The only one who didn't treat them like a wallet was you. Your soul accomplished the exact opposite in a society where many measure their charity by what they stand to earn. For someone who has spent the majority of their life reduced to a money symbol, it disarmed them. That millionaire had become used to being seen as a walking transaction, regardless of how strong or well-respected they seemed to be. There was an angle to every handshake. Every grin concealed a purpose. Charity, friendships, and love were all enshrouded in tiny print. They were not approached humanely. They took a calculated approach. You didn't flinch, however. You didn't stop to consider their value. Gain wasn't the reason you scanned. That is not how your soul functions. Since your spirit isn't made to follow money, you didn't treat them like a wallet. It draws genuine worth. It's not begging. It's not a hunter. It doesn't work. They were startled out of their routines by the pure frequency you convey. You demonstrated to them something uncommon, a connection without an invoice. They were most likely waiting for the other shoe to drop for the request, the expectation, or the favor. However, it never materialized. Additionally, your silence was more powerful than any networking pitch they had ever heard. Because someone looked at them and saw a person, not a portfolio, for the first time in a long time. Their humanity and dignity were restored in that one instant with you. Something they were unaware had become numb. They were still more than what they possessed, you reminded them. And without trying, you succeeded. It was memorable because of it. You had no intention of impressing, and you made an impact for just that reason. In a time when most people are seeking approval, your enthusiasm allowed you to just be. And it was sacrosanct to someone who had everything except peace of mind. It wasn't common. It was therapeutic. You become a memorable person, not because of your actions, words, or attire, but rather because you restored their sense of humanity. You gave them a sense of realism. They now understand that you are different from the others. They can't forget, replace, or purchase you. 8. The gatekeeper was watching. Yet the system made fun of you for being kind. They referred to you as soft and thought you were too kind, too generous, and too forgiving. People pretended that your generosity was a weakness, something to hide, to harden, to fix. You were ignored, and treated as if you had no place in places where manipulation and haughtiness were commonplace. While you remained grounded in reality, you saw others succeed by playing dirty. And it seemed for a while that the world had decided to punish the pure and praise the cruel. They were unaware, however, that a strong person was observing. I'm silently watching without applauding, liking, or making noise in response to your postings. The way you moved when no one was looking, not simply what you did in public. When you had the option to grow resentful, but choose to be compassionate instead. When you put up your best effort while being ignored. When you had every excuse to change, yet chose to remain true to who you are at your heart. That gatekeeper, the one with actual power, influence, and access, wasn't searching for another strategic charmer or loud voice. Purity under duress was what they sought. And without even being aware that you were being tested, you repeatedly delivered. The irony is that the quality that earned you their admiration was the same one that made you a target of ridicule. Your unfailing compassion. The thing that made you memorable was that it was uncommon, not because it was simple. Everyone else was using ego, power, and phony confidence to impress. However, you entered as you were, unpolished, truthful, and authentic. And they were drawn to it. The door that others attempted to open for you by manipulation or prestige is ready to swing open. You were able to embody what the system was unable to corrupt, not because you sought it. The true gatekeeper was working on your invitation while they were busy making fun of your tenderness. You didn't fold. You didn't pretend. In a cold world, you remained compassionate. You're going to be praised in front of the same individuals who disregarded you for just that reason. 9. You weren't supposed to know that they were testing you the whole time. You believed it to be a routine encounter. No, it wasn't. That individual who seemed in need of a little patience, grace, or assistance. They were no ordinary people. It was a gate masquerading as an outsider. A test in simple clothing. It was not intended for you to know. That was the main idea. You see, when they want to know someone's genuine character, those with great riches, influence, and power don't make an announcement. They arrive inconspicuously to observe your behavior while the cameras are not rolling. When you believe your efforts are pointless and there is no reward in sight. How about you? You made it through. You're always that person, not because you were aware that you were being observed. They saw everything, but you had no idea who was looking. Status didn't cause you to change your tone. People weren't dressed like success, so you didn't ignore them. You gave someone you believed had nothing to give you the same warmth, presence, and dignity. And because most people fail at that section, it was the test. Respect is only shown when there is something to gain. However, you did not distinguish. Furthermore, that disclosed more about you than any speech or CV could. In reality, they were testing your ability to trust your soul with more resources, more exposure, and increased access. When you strive to impress them, they don't care who you end up being. When there was no applause, they were observing you. What they saw was also uncommon. Someone whose moral character remains constant regardless of the situation. And someone who does not exhibit compassion. A person who exemplifies it. The stillness is gone now, as is the test. They have already made up their minds. And there's more than simply a prize in store. It's an acknowledgement. Because you pursued it, you are not being uplifted. When life whispered, "This one's real," you lived in a manner that demonstrated it. And that's why you're being elevated. You were unaware that you were taking the exam, yet you passed it. You're going to open the doors that you never dared to knock on. 10. Despite their best efforts to forget you, the universe continued to bring you back. They intended to remove you from their narrative, to dismiss the recollection like an annoying thought or a background sound that is easily ignored. However, when something genuine appears, the cosmos doesn't operate that way. You weren't here for a second. It was a sign, one that has resonance much beyond their capacity to control or explain. Despite their best efforts to hide it behind their hectic schedules or other distractions, your energy continued to reverberate in their brains like a soft echo. You didn't yell or seek attention for it. You didn't make any big gestures or remind people. You were just genuine, unwavering, and in alignment. You became a unique frequency that they couldn't ignore in a society where masks and facades are the norm. Your spirit refused to be quiet, haunting the places where their heart and intellect converged. They returned because of its lingering presence. They realized in their hearts that what you stood for was the truth they had been avoiding, not because they owed you anything. They found solace in wealth and influence, but your genuineness served as a mirror, revealing what true worth looks like when all the noise is removed. It caused them to reflect on their decisions, loneliness, and purpose. Coincidence is not the universe's business. Touching someone's soul on that level starts a domino effect that continues to pull until the narrative is resolved. Thus, here they are, pulled back by an irresistible force rather than duty or shame. Your energy is a light amid their disarray, which is why they are returning. A reminder that money and rank were never the reason for their losses. It was about something far more profound. You didn't need to find them. For you, the universe did it. And now that you have something that cannot be replaced, erased, or forgotten, the door is opening wide. It demands to be acknowledged. 11. Those that played you will be offended by the compensation you are about to get. Your breakthrough won't happen by accident. The quiet is going to be broken like a thunderclap. It won't come as a surprise to those who disregarded you, believed your generosity was weak, and used you as a doormat or stepping stone. Your triumph will seem to them as a sudden favor from destiny, an overnight miracle. However, the cosmos and you both know better. Like a ledger stored in the skies, every missed opportunity and instance in which they undervalued you was recorded. It wasn't only that you arrived with excellent intentions. Another person's life was changed by your actions. A person with money and power that most people can only imagine. The billionaire you assisted won't just ignore it or forget about it. They are not the kind to overlook such an uncommon conduct. Rather, they have already begun making investments in you, not because of altruism, but because they see your worth in a way that others cannot. You're going to get more than just monetary reward. It's a declaration. It's a crown put directly on your head in front of others who have disregarded, exploited, or played you. It's an outspoken statement that your honesty was not a liability, but rather the cornerstone of your legacy, and that your generosity was not a sign of weakness, but of strength. They will see the person they fought to keep below them ascend with unanticipated benefits. Even worse for them is that they don't know, control, or have any influence over the person who elevated you. It's a power that is beyond of their control, a heavenly retribution for how they treated you. So feel free to insult them. Your moment has here, so let them be taken aback. Retaliation is not the goal of the repayment. It has to do with due acknowledgement. Not only did you rescue a millionaire, but you also saved yourself. And that legacy is just getting started. 12. You're being positioned in addition to being paid. A salary check or an unexpected windfall are not the focus of this time you are entering. It is much more extensive than that. What follows concerns your position within the overall scheme of things. It has to do with position, a hallowed area reserved only for you, earned by the silent power of your goodness, not by hustle or deceit. It was the type of generosity that remained unbroken, unaffected by harshness, and unaffected by pressure. Anyone may get money, but only those who have been put to the test in a fire and did not burn others to survive are eligible for influence. This isn't chance or charity. The alignment is heavenly. They are doing more than simply giving you resources. They are beckoning you into a space where your might and soul meet. A location where those who have shown they are capable of handling the responsibility that comes with actual power make decisions in private and in silence. Your generosity was the last requirement. It demonstrated that you are safe not only to own riches, but also to use it honorably. You proved that you could hold onto power without losing yourself or stepping on others in a society where it often corrupts. It's not common. That's worth it. And you're being positioned for just that reason. This isn't about proving yourself to the world or pursuing prestige. It's about taking on a position where your impact can go far beyond what money can purchase. You're being put in a position where your influence counts, where your voice may leave a lasting legacy, and where your enthusiasm unlocks doors that most others have been unable to access. Therefore, keep in mind that the payment is a signal as well as a reward when it arrives. It is a sign that you have reached a higher plane and is only given to those who will not compromise their generosity in the sake of achievement. You're not only receiving compensation, you're setting yourself up for success that money cannot buy. 13. This will prove to be supernatural since the reward will be so specific. The prize that awaits you won't seem arbitrary or generic. Nobody will be able to fall into a one-size-fits-all sort of arrangement. Rather, it will be so special and tailored to you that it will completely shock you. Everything about you, even the dreams you dared to speak alone in your heart, will seem to have been taken by the cosmos. The hardships you silently faced, the abilities you were unaware you possessed, and combine them into one indisputable benefit. A part of you that has been waiting, possibly for years, but has never had the correct key to unleash it will be precisely aligned with the chance. This prize will satisfy a deep-seated need in your heart that you were afraid to express, because who really speaks out about their innermost desires. However, this award will resonate with that aspect of you like it has been waiting for someone to notice it. The truth strikes then. This was no accident. There was more than chance involved in the planning, orchestration, and timely delivery of this. The accuracy of everything and how well it fits into your life will be sufficient evidence that supernatural powers have been at play. People sometimes anticipate large checks or dazzling victories when they discuss blessings. However, your prize will seem like the last piece of a jigsaw fitting together, proving that your journey was never pointless or arbitrary. It will demonstrate that the cosmos was keeping an eye on you and creating room for you to be accepted just the way you are. It takes more than chance or hustle to achieve this type of divine alignment. It's about being appreciated by the invisible hands directing your path and seen by the invisible. And when you get this sort of recompense, this customized blessing, you won't ever question that your honesty and generosity had an impact that went much beyond your immediate perception. This will serve as indisputable evidence that you were selected, that your generosity wasn't only observed. It was honored in a manner that could only be orchestrated by the Almighty. 14. The world is going to see that you were always the one with the money. No bank account could ever capture the riches you've always held. The unconditional love you showed, the moral character you displayed while no one was looking, the kindness you showed even when it wasn't reciprocated. Your real wealth was these. You didn't have to earn dignity. You were a silent, constant embodiment of it. You weren't empty or broke. The world didn't have the vocabulary or the perspective to see that you were rich in the most deep ways. The issue isn't that you weren't valuable. It's because the conventional metrics, the numbers, the titles, the ostentatious belongings, cannot adequately convey what you really own. For a long time, society has attempted to limit value to what can be measured or seen. Additionally, you seemed inconspicuous inside that framework. However, your money was never intended to be hidden. It just awaited recognition by the appropriate eyes and heart. That time has come. You are going to be placed in a position where your genuine riches can no longer be disregarded by someone who knows what worth really is, who can look beyond appearances and see the profound currents underneath. They are prepared to invest in, magnify, and present what you freely gave up in a manner that the world can finally understand because they understand that it is uncommon money. Your reality is going to have to catch up with the world's measures, which include money, prestige, and power. Since the sort of wealth you represent cannot be quantified using outdated criteria, they will have to revise the guidelines. This isn't about becoming wealthy overnight in the conventional sense. It's about your inner wealth at last manifesting itself in ways that are indisputable. So get ready. You were always rich in the most important manner. The globe will soon be able to see it as well, as a stark, indisputable fact, not as a whisper or a secret. Remember this as this phase of your trip progresses. Your generosity was never a sign of weakness or error. It was an unseen force, a silent force that started a chain of events that were far bigger than you could have ever dreamed. A millionaire wasn't the only one you helped. You started a domino effect that goes beyond material prosperity, social standing, or short-lived fame. What you planted with honesty, morality, and empathy is now growing into a legacy that will last beyond any financial gain. The cosmos will now acknowledge your invisible hardships and quiet triumphs, where you are really creating an indestructible armor each time you choose to be nice in a world that required toughness. There is more to the prize you will get than simply pay or status. It's about being properly recognized, elevating your soul, and finding your mission. It's about everyone realizing that you were always rich, always valued, and always deserving of greatness. Your generosity will no longer be misinterpreted or undervalued. Rather, it will be acknowledged as the most unique kind of money, one that cannot be purchased, exchanged, or duplicated. You've shown that true power comes from living your life with an open heart that can alter people's fates, not from pushing your way in. The millionaire you rescued is only the start. What follows demonstrates the kind of person you are, someone whose energy cannot be disregarded, whose light cannot be extinguished, and whose impact is destined to change the course of history. So confidently cling to this fact. You're not just going to be blessed. Your generosity will pay off in ways the world has never seen before as you enter a new age. You are setting yourself up for success, influence, and an indelible legacy. And when this happens, those who didn't believe in you will have to see a change they never imagined was possible. Now is your time. Take ownership of it, because the energy that transforms everything is the compassion you silently carried. The world is at last prepared to recognize you for who you really are and the difference you were meant to make. Remember to subscribe to the channel for more in-depth, enlightening insights if this message struck a chord with you and you're prepared to embrace the wonderful route ahead and the power of your compassion. To express your support, click the like button and leave a remark below. Tell us about your experience or how this resonated with you. Additionally, feel free to share this video with anybody you know who needs to hear this message. By working together, we are creating a community of people who will not accept anything less than their actual value. Keep an eye out, because